Hey guys, I know this is not the type of video that's usually considered to be one of the more interesting videos, but I figured since there are still a couple of weeks until I'm going to start uploading in here, I might as well start out with a basics video. The tools and materials I use is something I get questions about on my main channel on a daily basis, so I thought I would make a video just going through the tools and materials I recommend when making realistic miniature food. Now, if you followed me for a while, there might not be much to gain for you in this video, but maybe you'll find it entertaining somehow anyway. What I have here is the closest I could get to the tools I used when I first started making clay charms and miniatures. I had a craft knife, which was just one of those cheap retractable utility knives. I used a meat pin. A lot of people tend to use toothpicks. And then I had a toothbrush. The work surface I had was a cutting board I stole from my parents' kitchen, and then to avoid having the clay stick directly onto the cutting board, I put it inside of a plastic bag, which is not ideal, but that's what I had. As for the shading, I used some Faber-Castell soft pastels I had from my art supply collection, and I actually used those up until 2013 or 14, but I'll get back to that. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I know from experience that some people tend to get discouraged if they're first starting out and they see all these tools and different supplies in mine or other people's videos, thinking that they have to have all of them and those exact tools in order to make these things. And that's not true. Just use what you have. The tools I'm going to be showing you in this video are just the ones I recommend if you want to make realistic miniature food. You don't have to have them, but they are going to make things easier and they are going to be helpful. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but obviously you're going to be needing some clay. Now, the brands I'm currently using are Cernet, Primo, Soufflé, both by Sculpting, and then Fimo Soft, Fimo Classic, and Fimo Professional. I used to use Kato as well, but I've never really liked the smell, so I'm trying to use up what I have, and then I'm probably not going to be repurchasing it. There are lots of different options when it comes to brands, and I guess sub-brands we can call them, of polymer clay. Different people prefer different brands for different reasons, so I definitely recommend just trying out some different ones and then finding the one that works the best for you. And of course, when talking clay, we can't forget about liquid clay. These are the two I tend to use the most. I would say almost the only ones I use. So I have translucent liquid Sculpting, also known as TLS, and then Fimo Deco Gel. I use two different types of tools for cutting the clay. One is a flexible tissue blade. I like these because you have the option of cutting in a slight curve as well. And then the other one is an X-Acto knife, which is obviously a lot better for detail work. The next tool I definitely recommend having is a needle tool. And I'd actually recommend having more than one, because although these do look very similar and they can all hurt you, the tip is slightly different. This one is the thickest one, this one is the next, and this one is the thinnest one. And you don't have to have a fancy needle tool at all. One of the best types of needle tools you can get is actually sewing needles, because you can get them for super cheap in a pack of a variety of different thicknesses, and you can use polymer clay to just make a handle yourself, so you really don't need to purchase any special tool. Dotting and ball tools are another great tool to have. I got these off eBay. You can find these when searching for nail art tools, and this one when searching for cake decorating tools. The two I use the most are these two, and my absolute favorite one that I use the most in all of my videos is the blue one. I love this one so much because it came with this fine point at one end, and although I've had others with a similar tip, it hasn't been the exact same shape and size. However, if you don't have a dotting tool with a more fine tip like this, you can just take a metal file and file off the dotting tool or the small ball at the end yourself. One of the best tools you can get for texturing cakes and other baked things is a toothbrush, and once again I do recommend having a couple of different ones, although you don't necessarily need to have 6 of them. The reason why I have so many different ones is because these are for kids, and so the bristles are softer and will create a different texture than ones that are harder for adults. This one I've massacred, as you can see, so that it fits a smaller area instead of having this huge brush to deal with. And then these two over here are, I'm not sure if this one is a kid's brush. I'm pretty sure this one is meant for cleaning dentures and braces, but I bought both of these again just because the head is smaller and so it's easier to fit into small areas. As you can see, you can totally DIY one if you can't find one of these smaller brushes. The main thing is that I would recommend having one maybe with some harder bristles and softer bristles. Obviously, this is the most fancy, most expensive tool I have for texturing, or not. Tinfoil, great for adding texture to, again, just baked goods or other things. This is me silently mimicking a rolling pin. A rolling pin to roll out sheets of clay, and then if you need a lot of uniform pieces or do a lot of caning, a pasta machine is definitely the way to go. This is probably one of the tools I get the most questions about, and that is my silicone tools. This one is wrapped in tinfoil because polymer clay is the devil and dissolves paint, nail polish, and things like that. Both of these are from craft or art supply shops. Usually they're called something like color shaper and can be found near the paint section. Some people sell them as cake decorating tools, and you can also find them in the clay sculpting section. This one is one of the newer tools in my collection and has also become one of my favorites. It is a gum massager, or I'm sorry, gum stimulator. Sounds great. The reason why I like this one so much is, first of all, because it has a very fine tip. It is more stiff than most other silicone tools I've tried, so it holds the point very well when adding texture or sculpting fine details. And the texture is also slightly different. It is more rubbery than silicone, which means that it kind of glides over the clay as opposed to tearing it. The best part about it might even be the fact that you can get replacement heads for it. Either way, I got mine off eBay, but you can also find these at places like pharmacies. Now for one of the more fun materials, pow! Soft pastels. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the first ones I used for my clay creations were by Faber-Castell, and I really did like that set. One of the reasons why I chose to buy some new ones was, well, I guess one, to just upgrade in general. Upgrading is always fun, and just knowing you have good quality materials to work with. Another reason was just to have a better color selection, and then also to get pigments that were more light fast. The set I have here is by Rembrandt, and I am currently in the process of switching to a different brand. One of the reasons is because I just wanted better quality. I wanted to make sure that the pigments I am using are light fast, or as light fast as possible. And then I also wanted to be able to buy them open stock in shops that I usually buy from, so that I can get the colors I want and not just these pre-made sets. The next brand I have here, which I also really love, although it is not the brand I'm currently in the process of switching to, is Sennelier, which is a French brand. And this probably also shows one of the reasons why I chose to buy open stock. I just wanted more shades to choose from when making baked and cooked things, so that explains all the brown going on here. Now the brand I'm trying to, I guess, kind of replace my other pastels with is Schminke. These are some of the ones I have so far. I have some more over there, but fragile storage solution, and then I'm also waiting for some in the mail. Now once again, if you're just starting out, don't buy these. I mean, just go down and get a set where you get a lot of colors for your money, so you have some different options. No need to get these. But since I am selling my pieces, again, I just want them to last, and so the light fastness is something I did start to worry about, and like the color selection, it just can't be beaten. One thing I am going to be making differently in the videos I'm going to be posting on this channel as opposed to the ones on my main channel is that in the tutorials I am going to show you the exact names for the pastels I'm using. So if I'm using one shade a lot, or if I'm using a shade that you really like, you can see the name and brand of that shade. The brushes I use for shading are just the cheapest brushes I can find. All of these are from eBay. These ones are found by searching for watercolor brushes, and then the two here are called something like 12-piece nail art detail brush, something like that. The quality is absolutely horrible, but I know I'm going to ruin them and I'm going to be throwing them out anyway after a while, so it's not really worth it to buy fancy brushes. For some types of food and sometimes after adding shading using the pastel, I like going in with acrylic paint, and the ones I'm using are by Joe Sonja and Winsor Newton. Joe Sonjas are the ones I've had for the longest time. I bought these in 2011 or 2012. These are just a bit hard for me to buy open stock, and that's why I started buying Winsor Newton. And just like with the pastel, use whatever you have. The reason why I use these as opposed to a random no-name brand is because the pigments in these ones are often more light fast. My favorite glazes to use when doing miniature food are these three. I have the Winsor Newton for acrylic paintings, and this is a matte finish, and then I have two female glazes which are semi-gloss and gloss glaze. I like these thinner glazes as opposed to thicker glazes for food because most foods are not super glossy and need more of a sheen, so these are great for that. And you can also apply them in a thicker coat if you need it to be more glossy. The last few things I'm going to show you are more so just additions. They're not as necessary in my opinion, but they do make a lot of things easier, and they are great additions to your stash. Tweezers for picking up or holding tiny things in place. Mold putty for making cupcake bases or other things where molds really make things either much easier or just doable. The one I have here is silicone, but I also really like Amazing Mold Putty. Cornstarch or potato starch so that the clay doesn't stick to your hands or your work surface if you need that, or to minimize fingerprints. Sand is also great for adding different effects. Mainly I just recommend having white and black for sugar, salt and pepper. You can get these at a lot of craft shops or florist supply shops. Different shimmery or metallic pigments like these are not used as often, at least not in my experience when making miniature food, but if you do enjoy making raw fish, they can be a great option. Preserved moss and princess pine again just looks great for different types of scenes and arrangements. And then I guess the only other kind of material I want to mention is resin, which again can create some really cool effects. I guess the last thing I have to mention, because it is the #1 thing I get questions about on my main channel, is my sculpting base. I made this one myself out of ceramic or earthenware clay, and I fired it in a kiln. So it's not something I'm going to be making a tutorial on, because if you do have access to those supplies, you will know how to make this. Anyway, if you made it this far, congratulations. I know this might not be the most interesting type of video to watch, but it is nice to have some of these kind of back to basics videos on my channel, just to refer back to when I do get questions about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.